It's not a push. It's not a collapse. Because a collapse is a push as well. No? It's just a heaviness. Yeah? It doesn't give you any lift. Yeah? Yeah. So we're sort of trying to evoke this through every part of someone. So whatever part of you still feel, oh, no, that doesn't give to the ground. No, I can't imagine that softening, whether it's in your ribs or your pelvis or your heels or your head. You know that's still an area where the big muscles are doing a lot of work. But you haven't generalised yet that response to all of those parts of yourself. Again, not good or bad, but simply information. To go, because something can't be included in your image if the big muscles are holding it all the time. It's like you'll often work with people and around areas they don't know as much, and they'll go, oh, that's so tender. And it's not painful. They'll just go, it's so tender. You know, I didn't even know that was so tight or had tension in it. And they can't because it never changes its shape. So there's no feedback going up to the cortex. No? It's just muscles that are constantly holding in one position all the time. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to what we did yesterday in prone after you've done that lesson. Thinking about how could I give someone, again, a sense of everything can begin to follow where their head is turning. And I thought the way we do it is for you to lie down and feel it on yourselves first. So get a new partner from yesterday. So just pick a partner and then find your mat and lie down on your belly. Because you'll be coming back to this partner at the end. You don't have to be close to each other at the moment, just already have picked a partner. That's all. You're just having someone else to work with than you did yesterday. So we've got another approximation. So you're both lying on your bellies. Yeah? You've picked a partner, but you're both lying on your bellies. No, you don't need to be near your partner at the moment. Just that you've got one, Alison. Has everyone got a partner? Sylvie doesn't have one. Have you got a partner? Yeah, you can be a 3. It's fine. Yeah? Okay, so finding the easiest way to turn your head. So explore that a little bit first. How do you know which side's more comfortable to turn your head? And you might notice, does your head change its position depending on which side you have it on? So it is a different part of your face, touch the ground. You move your head a little bit more through space to go one side. So find your most comfortable side with your head turned. And in this position, keeping it oriented that way, could you begin to move your head? So lift your head and translate it a little bit further in that direction. So you're just lifting your head and translating it a little bit further forward. So if your arms are up around your head, you're moving your head more in the direction of the elbow that you're facing. And just see, does that make a difference to where your weight is? And then move it back to where you had it initially. And just feel, does that change the parts of you that are making contact with the ground? So we sort of suggested yesterday that the position that the head's in, because it's got the teleceptors in it, which tell us so much about the external world, is going to have a really big influence on us. Does it make a difference? And which is more comfortable with your head further forward or where you first had it? And then let's have another option where you translate your head backwards a little bit. So from where you started, you translate it a little bit backwards. And what does this do to where your weight is? And then within those three positions of your head, which one of those allows your pelvis to rotate most easily so that the hip on the side that you're facing could lift a little bit? So which of those three positions of your head, in where you started with it, or translating it a little bit forward, or translating it a little bit backwards, for you allows your pelvis to most easily begin to roll so the hip on the same side that you're facing can lift a little bit? Great. Good. So leave your head wherever it's easiest for you to feel that your pelvis feels a little bit more able to roll there. And now think of both your heels. Get a sense of where they're lying. Are they rotated in the direction? Are they rotated sort of that they're going in the same direction, or are they both rotated in or both rotated out? And begin to really gently, and you're looking, you can imagine someone's feet on your heels, and they're going to really gently begin to rotate. So if you're looking to the right, your heels will be turning to the left. And you're staying within a range, and it's your heels that are leading this movement. You're really thinking that you're moving from your heels, and both heels are moving the same amount. Both heels, they might be doing something quite different, but they're both moving the same amount. And you might begin to feel that one, as you rotate your heels, one leg might feel it gets a little bit longer, or one knee might feel it begins to bend a little bit more. Don't make it happen. These are just possibilities. That if your head's facing to the right and you are rolling your heels to the left, maybe your right knee could begin to bend just a fraction. Your left leg might get a little bit longer. And leave that, pause. And go back And roll your pelvis again. See, has anything changed from doing that movement with your heels? And pause. And now could you imagine someone's got their hands around your knees? It's really softly. And again, as I said, this isn't a real skeletal touch. It's because we're looking at moving across the ground. So it's a bit fleshy, if you like. You've got the bone, but you've got the person's flesh as well. And you're just gently rotating now both knees. And again, because you're on your belly, you can't do this as a pure rotation. So begin to feel that they can both go in the direction. So if your head's to the right, your knees are turning to the left. If your head's facing left, you're rolling your knees a little bit back to your right. So they're congruent with getting the weight over. And again, you might feel one leg's going to do something a little different to the other, just a little. That if your head's to the right, that your right knee might be bending a little bit. So you're getting a little shorter on your right side. And then go back and do that with your pelvis again, that same movement. And see, is that getting a little clearer, that to roll the pelvis with your head faced this way, that something asymmetrical needs to happen in your legs, just a little, to allow your weight to shift a little bit more to the side that you're not facing. And now if the person had their hands on your lower ribs. And again, the ground has to give. You're staying within a range. And how would they move this? What shape? That, again, you can't do a pure rotation. So can you feel that as you roll your ribs, one side's getting a little longer, one side's getting a little shorter. And you're keeping the rest of you fairly quiet. And maybe you can begin to feel, as we're working from the bottom up, that if your head is to the left and you're rotating your ribs a little bit to the right, what would happen in your shoulders? You can already feel that one leg, that as you're rotating to the left, that maybe your right leg shortens, begins to bend a little bit, your left leg gets long. So what happens in your shoulders? In your shoulder blades? Can you begin to feel that this movement of the ribs could be asking one shoulder to go up in the direction of your head? The side you're facing away from might go lift up in the direction of your head and get a little closer to the ground, while the shoulder on the side you're facing might lift up a little bit, not in relation to you, but in relation to the ceiling. And slide down a little bit. And then if we think of the base of your neck, remember, and if you were around, your hands were around the base of your neck, that if your head's turned to the right, that the left upper ribs would be coming up a little bit as the shoulder came up, and forward a little bit toward the floor as the right upper ribs will roll a little bit up closer to the ceiling and down a little bit. And can you feel maybe your head responding to this? And then could you begin to join all of these movements together in your image? So it's your heels and your knees and your pelvis and your hips and your ribs and your sternum and your shoulder blades and the base of your neck. All beginning to turn a little to the side you're not facing, which lets your head come a little bit more easily to the ground. And how could, again, if we go back to that idea we just had of all of you ready to go. So which are the bits that you might leave out of your image? Is it the ribs on one side or the other? The collarbones, the shoulder girdle, your knees or your hips? So the big ones that make a huge difference is always our pelvis, our hips, and this upper shoulder girdle and upper back. If we can begin to get that getting softer and more available, the middle of us often can begin to get involved in a different way, in a softer way. And pause now on your belly and just see, how does your head feel now? Does it feel any more comfortable? And again, one of the ways we'll check this that we didn't do at the beginning, but you can do now, is just to see how easy would it be to do a little yes or no of your skull. To just rotate your neck a little bit, to do no, or to just nod your head a little bit to do yes. Okay. Come up to standing. Oh, actually, before you do, sorry, lift your head. Does your head feel any lighter after that? This is something about clarifying what could happen and how do you use the ground? And then come up to standing and see how that feels. So how much of the previous ATM, some of those sensations, were you able to maintain, to generalise to that lesson? Feeling of the ground, Easy breathing. Feel where the weight is on your feet. And turn your head in the direction you were just turning it on the floor. And just feel, how many ways do I have to turn my head at the moment? Could I shift my weight to the same leg I'm turning? Could I shift my weight to the opposite leg? Could I keep my weight on both legs as I'm turning? How many options have you got there about how you could turn your head at the moment? How many possibilities? Then turn your head the other way and just see, is it different? Okay, so find your partner, and could you go, again, you feel free to use a table to do this. No? And we're just going to go through that same sequence that we went through yesterday after you've had a sense of it in yourself, what you're looking for. The softness in the ground, the quality, the inclusive attention. Yeah,